This is Thank You Mama weekly lessons from mothers all around the world. Hello and welcome. My name is Anna Tyler. This is Thank You Mama. My guest today is Lara Johnson. Lara is a mom of 4. She is a life coach, a weight coach, and the host of Mom on Purpose podcast, in which she helps moms who got stuck. We all know this feeling in their mom life. And she supports moms to get, as she says, out of their funk. We're going to learn more about this. Lara, welcome. Hi.
Thank you. It's really good to be here.
Good to have you here. Tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you decide to start working with moms and help them get unstuck?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a really interesting story because it was like God. I could already feel God. I'm Christian. I could feel God calling me to something more. I loved being a mom, and I knew that I was supposed to be doing something else just because there was this internal ringing inside of me that I couldn't explain. And at the same time, I had with a few friends started a nonprofit. We helped young terminally ill parents, and these were parents that were given, 12 months left to live or less. And it was very emotional. In the process, I found that I loved business. I loved working with people. I loved, and I'd had other jobs that wasn't anything new to me. But having this huge, emotional, turmoil too, when you're helping these young parents, because I was a young parent. And I remember at one point kneeling down and praying, what is my path forward? And at one point I felt so strongly, I love helping these parents before they pass to really live to their very fullest with their family, make those memories. And I just had this image of thousands of women all over the world that aren't able to live their fullest while they're living. And it was like this huge, spiritual awakening almost of what about all the other moms? What is being done for all the other moms that are living? And that's really where the turning point was for me, where I wanted to be able to help all of the moms out there to live their fullest, greatest life right now with their families while while they're raising their kids and while they're feeling called to something more, and really helping them reawaken that calling inside of them as a mom, and if there's something else they're feeling called to.
Wow. Here's the tough question. Here's what I really am curious about. How do you deal with emotions when you're working with people who are terminally ill and are parents? This is one of the worst situations one could be with. How do you protect yourself? Because hearing you talk about it, my first thought is I think with every single person I meet, I would just crumble.
To be honest, I didn't have the skills that I have now, and I didn't manage the emotions well. I felt like my doctor could tell you probably the same thing. I turned into a hypochondriac because at any given point, I thought it was my turn. I thought, I'm watching these parents go through these really hard things. It could happen to anyone. And I didn't manage the emotions well at the time, which was one of the reasons why I knew I needed to step back from it. I am so grateful that I did it. It was life-changing. And I knew that it was time for me to focus on myself and my family and being able to really make the memories and, get out of the funk. And, what I teach people to do now, that's really where it came from, was being able to learn and take myself through that process many years ago.
Mm-hmm. What is the most life-changing lesson? You just shared it with your listeners, and I'm like,
I did.
Maybe you can share it with my listeners as well.
Yes. Oh, so the most life-changing lesson I feel like I could teach any mom is the skill of celebration. And I truly do believe as women, we are incredible, incredible beings that we don't give ourselves enough credit for. And the biggest thing that I see with my moms that I'm coaching is that they will get in and they will work hard and they will step back and think, it wasn't good enough. It didn't work out. I should have done more. And that shows up a lot in our parenting that, we'll give and give and give and never step back and actually feel proud of the things that we're doing. So in my coaching, like I call it a skill of celebration because in our minds, I think we imagine celebration as being these big dinners or parties, or you walk across the stage when you're graduating from university, but the everyday things we are still needing to celebrate. And if we don't have that skill and we aren't practicing it regularly, then we will always be living in a sense of not enoughness.
This is one of the most important things I've learned from my mom. She was really good and a little bit different, a little bit of a different version of that lesson. She was good at celebrating little things in life and just celebrating life. She lost her parents when she was little, and I think she knew how fragile life is and everything we have is, and she really lived life to its fullest and with so much joy, and I think that's so important. I
Yeah,
agree with you.
it's beautiful.
Do you want to tell me about Mom Valerie?
I would love to.
Tell me her story.
Yeah, she is a incredible person that I don't think I appreciated until I was an adult. And looking back at my childhood, every childhood has its challenges. And I think, my mom was raising 5 kids. My dad was still there. Like they have a great marriage. They've been together since they were 15 years old. They're adorable, the cutest couple you've ever seen.
How did they
And
meet?
at school and church. And yeah, they knew each other when they were little. And then my mom moved away to a different state. And when she moved back, she was 15 years old. And my dad said he was convinced an angel had walked in the room when she had come back.
Oh. Was
So
it
they
also in Utah?
no, so all of my family is from Texas. That's where my parents were raised. And all my extended family, we were transplants to Utah when I was a kid. My dad was transferred here for work, but I was born in Louisiana. Most of my family was in the Texas area. And so that's where they kind of were raised. And so, growing up, we had transplanted away from all family to a completely different state. And then my mom was raising kids on top of that, away from a lot of support systems that she had before. And I can't imagine how hard that was and how emotionally taxing it was, especially being a mom of 4 kids now. And, that's one of the reasons why we live where we live is because we have that support system of family. So I can't imagine transplanting away from that. So when I think back to my childhood, and I think like no childhood is perfect, but as I've become an adult, I can see how much love, how much dedication my mom had to continually showing up. We kind of laugh sometimes, like, some of the memories I do have of her, like putting us in the backyard and throwing ice cream sandwiches at us and telling us to stay outside. Like we kind of joke about those stories, which I can completely relate to as a mom. But when I look back now, I remember, her showing up consistently over and over and over in my life. And when I look back, like those are the things that are most consistent in my memories, are that my mom showed up. Um, and I was very grateful for, and I still am, I'm still very grateful for that. And at one point, I remember talking with her. I must have been like 18 years old or so. And I remember we were kind of standing in the mirror. We're probably getting ready together or something. And I remember her saying, like, it's very odd to me that I'm looking in the mirror and I feel like an 18-year-old, but I'm standing next to my 18-year-old daughter. And now I look back, I'm like, oh, I can completely understand that comment on a very deep level. But one of the things that she said to me, and I still will remember, till the day I die, she said, you're going to keep seeing my flaws. You're going to see the things that I'm not good at. You're going to see how you could have done it differently. She said, my only hope is that you'll still appreciate generations before you, but that the next generation, you and then your children, will keep improving upon all of
Mm.
us. And I think that's really what changed for me on like releasing some of the imperfections, as a teenager, you have some
Teenager.
judgment on how your parents should show up for you. And I loved that comment because for me, I could see and appreciate the way that she was showing up in the best of her ability. And now I can change and evolve going forward. Um, and I think one of the things that like we grew up with, and I remember having this conversation once I started having kids, where I remember my mom saying, like, I didn't know anything about parenting. I didn't know anything about
Mm.
processing emotions. She
Mhm.
said, and if I wanted to learn, I had to pack up 5 children, go to the library and figure out the Dewey
Mm.
Decimal System while my kids are pulling books off of the shelves. She's like, so you really only had whatever you saw from your parents,
Your
and then you
parents.
started.
Yeah.
Yeah. She said, what a gift it is that we have the internet and can just Google something.
Yeah. Was she very young when she started having her 5
Hmm.
children?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. So I want to say she was 21
Mm-hmm.
by the time my dad and her got married. And then I think she was 22
Mm-hmm.
um, by the time she had my sister. And then I think by the time she had her final, she was 32, I believe, 32, 33.
Mm-hmm.
And which was when I was just barely starting to have kids. So
Mm.
it's just different to think
Yeah.
about.
How different is that?
Yeah.
So she's happy,
So
a
happy.
happy grandma now.
Yes, she
How
is.
many
She's a very
grandchildren does she
happy.
have?
Oh gosh, there's 13, I think,
Oh.
total. Yeah.
She's busy.
No, she is very busy. Not all of them live here. So
Yeah.
my kids and I've got a niece and a nephew here as well. We get extra
Mm.
grandma and
Mm.
grandma loves. And my daughter, that's one of her most favorite things to do is to go have a sleepover at grandma's house
Oh,
and
cute.
run errands with grandma. They are like two peas in a pod. It's adorable.
Cute.
Yeah.
Lara, let's learn from her. What do you feel are the most important lessons you've learned from her?
You know, I knew you were going to ask this, and I'm so glad because it really gave me a chance to reflect for myself. Like I mentioned before, being able to improve, each generation, and I hope to then pass that lesson on to my daughter. One of the things that I also love about my mom is that she has a fantastic sense of humor. If you're around her, you will always be laughing. And I was thinking about the time where, I think I was a older teenager, but I had some complications with things and I had to go to an OBGYN. We'll just put it at that. And I was so nervous that I was going to have to do an exam and I was not comfortable. So my mom took out like the little speculum and she's like talking to me. It was like it felt like a little duck. She's like, "Don't worry, I'm not scary." Things like that like that was very common and
Hmm.
she was very playful and I love that. But I think the other lesson that I really learned, the most life-changing lesson that I really learned from my mom was to follow your dreams. I remember my mom going back to school to take more college classes. And I know that was really hard when you have 5 kids at home. I don't even remember if she graduated, but
Hmm.
it didn't matter. She did it. And I remember being
Mm.
so proud of her for going back to school. There's always some business that she has started. At one point, she completely changed careers, which I can't even imagine how challenging that would be. She had been a nurse her whole life and switched careers and became a flight
Wait,
attendant.
wait, wait, wait. On hold. Well, let's put this on
Yes.
hold. She had 5 children and she had a career.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was.
That
And
is
she, it
incredible. I didn't
is.
even dare to. I was like, I have to ask, but I assumed she stayed home and took care of the children. But was she a nurse while she was a nurse when
Well, and
when she already had you guys at home?
yeah, so she,
It's
and it is incredible.
incredible.
There were times when we were older when she worked full time, but when we were
Mm-hmm.
younger, in order to stay home with us the best she could, she often worked evenings. Sometimes she worked nights. I can't imagine how challenging it would be to go to work all night and then to wake up the next, well, and then to get home from work, send kids off to school, and then you're sleeping during the day. I mean, they're like incredible things that she was doing in order to help with our family and to still be
Mm.
personally fulfilled. I mean, it's
Wow.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I was in ninth grade. I was a teenager when she left nursing and became a flight
Mm-hmm.
attendant.
Mm-hmm.
And because she wanted to, I don't know, actually, no, I should ask her why she became a flight attendant. But as a family, we definitely were able to enjoy the benefits and travel because we wouldn't have traveled otherwise. It was too financially expensive. But now looking back, like we were able to see so much of the US, so much of Europe, because my mom became a flight attendant. And eventually she left it and went back to nursing. But I have incredible memories of being able to see my family in Texas a lot more because my mom was a
Mm-hmm.
flight attendant and we could get those flight
But
benefits.
who would take care of you while she was flying? Well,
My dad,
how
my dad.
it's incredible.
Yeah. Oh,
What
he's
a team.
fantastic.
What a
They are a
team.
fantastic team. And, generationally, my dad is abnormal more.
Yeah.
Like he is very involved. They have an incredible partnership. And I am very lucky that way to be able to see a very strong matriarch and the partnership that my parents have together. My dad supporting my mom and my mom supporting my dad.
Oh,
And I
fantastic.
recognize how rare that is.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I interrupted you now because this
No,
was just
no.
amazing.
Yeah.
So you said to follow your dreams the way she did by
Hmm.
having multiple careers while raising 5 children. Do you have any other lessons?
I think that's probably the main one. Well, and to show up, to just keep showing up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I mentioned before, I was very hard on my mom, I think, for many years. I
Mm.
think I was very upset that she wasn't home like some of
Mm-hmm.
the other moms in our neighborhood. But looking back now, that was the best thing that she ever could have taught
Mm.
me.
Mm-hmm.
I at one point thought that, to be a good mom, you had to be a stay-at-home mom.
Mm.
And I did that for a blink of an eye and realized that's not for me. Like, and I'm grateful that I know that's a very huge privilege of being able to do that. And a lot of women
Yeah.
wish they could.
Yeah.
I know for me, my mental health, um, it wasn't great.
Mm-hmm.
And I am so appreciative that my mom set that example that you can be creative with a career and
Mm-hmm.
work and make it work with your own hours. And, that's what I do now with mine. And I'm very grateful for that. It
Mm-hmm.
allows me to be the mom that I want to be. And she's the one that paved the way without the internet, without being able to work online and on Zoom. And she was always very creative. And I am so grateful that she paved the way for women like me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, then I have to ask you the trick question. The trick question is there anything important she wasn't able to teach you or didn't teach you? Something important you learned by yourself?
Yeah, I think the biggest one, I mentioned this earlier, is the processing of emotions. Like,
Mm-hmm.
as we now have more information, we know what that looks like. But I remember becoming a parent and watching Daniel Tiger and learning how to process emotions from Daniel Tiger. I'm
I
like,
know. Sounds
oh,
familiar.
you're
I
right.
know. Yeah,
I'm like,
totally.
it wasn't well talked about. And
No.
it just wasn't. And I think so many of us now, it's so much more common to talk about these things. But there was hard stuff that, trauma, things like that, that happened with extended family. And, that's a whole different story. So there were very big things that were happening in our house. And my parents were dealing with a lot of emotions, kids were dealing with a lot of emotions, but you had to go into a room to deal with those emotions and stop crying. Now, when you have 5 kids, I can understand everybody's crying at the same time. But I guess I didn't ever know what to do with those emotions until I got older and I learned tools with that. And, we've since had that conversation, again, if I wanted to learn those things, I had to pack up 5 kids and find a book at the library. It just wasn't readily accessible. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that I do different now in my life and in my family, is processing those. But yeah, she didn't necessarily teach me that. Daniel Tiger did to start with.
Do you talk about this in your podcast by any chance? Processing emotions.
Processing? Oh, yes, a lot.
Great.
All the time.
Okay, so my listeners I will put a link in episode notes where they can find you. So,
wonderful.
Yeah. Lara, thank you so much. Let's recap very quickly. We learned from Mom, Valerie, that we're not perfect, but we have to be aware of it. And we have to improve with every generation and do this consciously. I think this is very important. The sense of humor and playfulness and how much that means in life, to follow your dreams. And I just want to add how amazing that she had careers and she worked while raising 5 children, and to keep showing up. I love how you started our conversation with her always being present and showing up and being there for you. And then something you wish she taught you, which she was not able to teach you, was how to process emotions, which is an amazing topic. We don't have time for it now, but my listeners can hop on your podcast and hear you talk about there. Is there anything I missed or anything else you'd like to add?
I think women are incredible. I think moms are incredible. And I am so grateful to be a mom. I am so grateful for the strong women in my life that have taught me how to be a mom, my mother-in-law, my grandparents, my friends, sisters, all of that. And I think when we truly come together as women, that's when we can really uplift and change the world.
Thank you. Lara, thank you again.
Thank you. It was great to see you.
It was fun.
And I can't wait for everybody to listen to the Mom on Purpose podcast, because that's where I will be interviewing Anna next.
Oh, I'm so excited about it.
Yes.
Thanks. If you enjoy Thank You Mama and want to help it grow, please take the 2 seconds to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps. If you'd like to get in touch, you can send me a mail at info@thankyouMama.net. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter under Anna Tider. That's TAJDER. This was Thank You Mama. Come back next week, subscribe, and tell your friends.